In the DVD commentary for The Simpsons' complete third season, showrunner Algie noted how the Simpsons staff began to see Sideshow Bob as their wily coyote. No matter his brilliance, planning, or viciousness, Bob could never just catch his very own roadrunner in the form of Bart Simpson. One of The Simpsons' most genuinely dangerous individuals has become a weird fixture in the lives of the family. He's been tasked with protecting Homer's life and found an odd kinship with Lisa, all while maintaining a fierce and furious hatred for Bart. Bob and Bart's relationship over the show is just plain wild, and a bizarrely bittersweet tragedy, all rake jokes aside. In this video, I'm going to explore the 30-plus year evolution of Sideshow Bob, from his murderous vendetta against Bart, all the way up to their ultimate reconciliation.
Milhouse, is there a knife in my back? Not that I can see.
Sideshow Bob has been a part of The Simpsons since its very first season, technically appearing as a non-speaking background character in Season 1's The Telltale Heart, but Bob became an overt character in his own right in Krusty Gets Busted. The episode focused on Krusty apparently robbing the Quickie Mart, with Homer as a key witness to the crime. And so a heartbroken Bart investigates the crime while Sideshow Bob was handed the reins of the TV show. Completely unaware of Bart as a person at this point, Bob transformed Krusty's show into a more sophisticated one.
Whom do you love?
The show intrigued the likes of Lisa, and there was no denying it was far more stimulating than the slapstick of Krusty's program. With Bob's big feet giving him away, Bart was able to expose his scheme by proving that he set Krusty up, and as a result, he was carted off to jail for the very first time.
I would have gotten away with it too if it went for these meddling kids.
Take him away, boys.
Now, it's important to remember that The Simpsons was still relatively grounded in its first season. As such, Sideshow Bob is just a well-spoken criminal by this point. But as you'll soon see, his character has gone through many drastic changes as the series goes on. Bob's next appearance would come in Season 3's Black Widower. While the episode and Bob himself is still played far more cartoonishly to accompany the changing tone of the show, his plan is still sinister. In prison for his actions in Season 1, Bob finds an unexpected connection to the outside world in Selma Bouvier. Feigning a romance with her, Bob quietly schemes a way to kill her and claim her surprisingly deep reservoir of cash. Upon being released from prison, Bob's whirlwind romance with Selma sees him suddenly propose. Selma accepts, unaware that Bob intends to use a series of her tics and habits to kill her and fake it as an accidental gas leak. The plan would have likely worked too, if it wasn't for a certain darn kid.
Sideshow Bob, I'm afraid the only victims here are the good people at Best Western Hotels.
Bart was able to piece together Bob's plan and the family raced to save Selma. And as a result, Bob was arrested yet again. From this point on, Bob retains a focused attention on Bart, often with a genuinely unsettling commitment. In Season 5's Cape Fear, Bob isn't just a charming criminal anymore, he's a terrifying blade-wielding psycho. The episode, directed by Rich Moore with a script credited to John Vitti, was heavily inspired by Martin Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear. Upon being released from prison on parole, Bob quickly throws himself into a campaign to intimidate Bart. And it worked, and the family were absolutely terrified. So they moved away through the witness protection program, but even still, Bob follows them and within days makes his presence known.
Hello, Bart. Down here, Bart.
One night, Bob simply sneaks into the house, ties up most of the family, and straight up tries to murder Bart with a machete. Thanks to The Simpsons having fully embraced a constantly silly and subversive reality around them, the episode is still filled with plenty of killer jokes.
Your name is Homer Thompson.
I got you.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
But without them, this is a story about someone trying to literally kill a kid. Bob's hatred for Bart is fully played here.
And, disembowel him.
but even he can't escape the wacky rules of the show, and so he ends up tricked by Bart into singing the entirety of Gilbert and Sullivan's opera, HMS Pinafore. This was a brilliant performance, but it did stall Bob long enough for them to reach the shore and for the police to finally arrest Bob again.
Take him away, toys.
What'd you say, Chief?
Having failed to murder a child, Bob was now pushed into a more generally villainous role for the town at large in Season 6's Sideshow Bob Roberts. After building a conservative base of support around himself, Bob ran for mayor and eventually won.
And just look how happy he is.
However, the decision to pad his victory with a clear case of voter fraud resulted in his expulsion from the role and his 4th arrest.
Bailiffs, place the mayor under arrest.
What? Oh, yes. All that stuff I did.
After his political uprising failed, he turned his fury towards TV in Season 7 Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming. In the episode, Bob attempts to set off a nuclear weapon in Springfield, and when that failed, he then tried to murder Bart and Krusty in a plane, which again was a big fat L.
Die, Krusty! Die! Oh.
And even though he did fail, his plan to blow up an entire town showed just how far Bob had come.
There were plenty of brand new bombs, but you had to go for that retro 50s charm.
Season 8's Brother from Another Series was a great showcase for the final piece of Bob that's come to define him, a genuine side that realizes what he's become. After finding inner peace while in prison, Bob's release is sponsored by his brother Cecil. And despite Bart's justifiable fears and suspicions, it turns out that Bob really has no ulterior motives this time.
He's just a little shy because I've tried to kill him so many times. Ah.
He's regretful of his past actions and hopes he can get a chance to simply resume a normal life. It's actually Cecil who has the criminal scheme, hoping to cover up his embezzlement by blaming Bob.
I forgot to mention, I'm planning to blow up the dam with you inside.
Well, obviously.
And luckily for the town, the trio saved the day. Bart even saves Bob's life, adding a brand new layer to his attempted redemption.
You saved my life, Bart.
Yeah.
But Clancy Wiggum immediately blames Bob for the crime, regardless of Lisa's pleas to the contrary, and so Bob is arrested once again.
I saved the children's lives! I'm a hero!
This redemptive side to Bob proved to be the crucial counterpoint to his darker elements. For all of his dangerous actions, there really seems to be a part of Bob that doesn't want to be a villain. Season 12's Day of the Jackanapes saw Bob set up an elaborate plan to kill Bart and Krusty, after the latter erased Bob's legacy from the show. But by this point, Bart doesn't even see Bob as a real threat anymore. With his reputation as Springfield's most unsuccessful criminal, he just didn't fear him one tiny bit.
Hey, stupid. You looked.
Nonetheless, Bob did manage to hypnotize Bart, turning him into a sleeper agent, who upon the right command would hug Krusty and activate a bomb, killing them both. But Krusty's sweet words about Bob during his final show really spoke to Bob's heart, and Mr. Teeny was able to save Krusty and Bart by grabbing the bomb and tossing it away. And while this seemed to settle things between Krusty and Bob, the latter's hatred for Bart continued in Season 14's The Great Louse Detective.
Sideshow Bob!
Oh, come now, we've been through so much together. Just call me Bob.
Tasked with protecting Homer from a mysterious killer, Bob is granted a temporary stay in the Simpsons' house. And Bob doesn't even try to hide his disdain for Bart, casually threatening him multiple times and only really being held at bay by a powerful electroshock collar wrapped around his ankle. By the episode's end, Bob was given a rare opportunity to kill Bart and be done with it, before discovering he just couldn't.
Dear God, grown accustomed to your face.
Years of conflict and challenges had forced Bob to grow almost an affectionate appreciation towards Bart Simpson. Bob's relocation to Italy in Season 17 to the Italian Bob was an attempt to follow on with that. Having conquered his murderous motivations, Bob relocated to a small village in Tuscany. It was there where he married a local woman called Francesca and even had a son called Gino. Even a chance encounter with the Simpsons didn't prompt his fury. Instead, finally happy, Bob convinced the family to leave him be, and his distaste for Bart had fully curdled into affection.
You know, you'll make some murderer very happy one day. But it shan't be me.
But Lisa's loose lips, after a few glasses of wine, revealed the truth of his identity to the village. And so Bob's new vendetta was initially targeted at the family as a whole, but it was ultimately crystallized into a newfound drive to finally kill Bart.
We should take revenge as a family.
The entire Terwilliger family, including Bob's parents, tried to help kill Bart in season 19's Funeral for a Fiend. But like all of his plans, this ultimately failed too, sending Bob further into a downward spiral, making him even crazier than before.
There he goes again.
And this was the very last time we saw his family, and in my opinion, a wasted opportunity. With each new Bob appearance, the writers continued to raise his villainy to new heights, so much so where he was even willing to carve off his own face and swap it with another man's to try and trick Bart and kill him.
I am Sideshow Bob.
Things got even more ridiculous in season 25's The Man Who Grew Too Much. Through DNA augmentation, Bob made himself a superhuman. He now had super strength, power leaping, as well as sonar abilities.
The sonar of a killer whale!
He at one point even unhinged his jaw and almost ate a human whole. Gone were the days of grounded storylines. Bob was now a fantastical, menacing beast, mirroring just how wacky the show had become.
Right. I gave myself gills.
But by season 29 and 12 Sideshow Bob-centric stories, the writers really wanted to strip things back to basics. No more superpowers, and in turn they recalibrated his attention squarely on Bart again. Season 29's Gone Boy saw Bart trapped in an abandoned military outpost, and a prisoner once again, Bob is amongst the people, dragged into the search, and when he finds the boy, Bob straps him to a rocket ship. But right before he's blasted into space, here's a change of heart, and instead of killing him, Bob and Bart finally make peace, sharing a big hug before going their separate ways.
I don't want to kill you anymore.
This episode ends with an epilogue focusing on Bob's eventual future, living alone on a beach in a lighthouse by the sea. And this moment kind of works as the perfect ending for Sideshow Bob, as he finally makes peace with the hatred that's fueled him for so many seasons. Even in his most recent appearance in season 31's Bobby It's Cold Outside, he is shown healing Mr. Burns' childhood trauma and ultimately saving Christmas. And at the end of that episode, he also finds happiness with a lovely lady. Sideshow Bob is the perfect example of how one's quest for revenge can completely consume you. And although his vendetta had cost him everything, him finding peace with Bart reaches a sweet-natured and fitting ending. Now, should Bob return down the road, I personally hope the writers don't revert Bob's growth. I don't want to see him attack Bart for the 100th time after seeing them hug. It would undo everything in his evolution, and it would just be plain repetitive. It's unquestionable that Bob is one of the most memorable and wickedly fun characters in The Simpsons, and maybe, just maybe, they should quietly retire him.